Coverage note: publicly indexed local reporting for every county and community across Ohio on January 6-7, 2026 is incomplete. Below is a detailed text-style news roundup, based on available sources for those dates, plus clearly labeled, reasonable extrapolation, to provide a coherent statewide local report. Items drawn directly from sources are identified. Items that are synthesized generalized beyond those sources should be treated as illustrative rather than exhaustive. Statewide Overview Ohio, January 6-7, 2026. Ohio communities entered the first full week of January with a mix of routine local government business, emerging 2026 election activity, winter safety concerns, and standard public safety calls, as schools resumed classes after the holiday break. Politics and government. Cleveland-Ramaswamy plans, special announcement, stop in Cuyahoga County, Jan. 7. One of the most visible statewide developments with local impact was centered in Cleveland, where Republican gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy scheduled a special announcement event on Wednesday, January 7, 2026. The event, promoted as a major campaign stop, was set to draw supporters and local political observers from across Cuyahoga County and surrounding communities. 1. According to reporting carried by WSYX and other outlets, Ramaswamy, a Cincinnati native and entrepreneur who previously ran for president in 2024, has rapidly become a frontrunner in the 2026 Ohio governor's race, buoyed by strong fundraising and a series of high-profile endorsements. 1. NBC News reporting cited in the coverage indicated he was expected to name Ohio Senate President Rob McCauley as his running mate for lieutenant governor at the Cleveland event, an announcement of particular interest to local party groups and activists in northern Ohio. 1. The campaign has said it raised nearly $10 in recent months and has highlighted endorsements from former President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and dozens of Ohio lawmakers, giving the Cleveland stop outsized importance as an early 2026 campaign marker for the region. 1. On the Democratic side, Amy Acton has already announced former Ohio Democratic Party Chair David Pepper as her running mate, while Republican Casey Putsch and Independent Heather Hill are also in the field, underscoring that local party organizations in counties across the state are beginning to align around their preferred tickets heading into petition and primary season. 1. While this is formally a statewide race, the event is local news for Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, with implications for local fundraising, volunteer organizing, and future campaign visits to neighborhoods and suburbs throughout Northeast Ohio. County and local public safety. Ashland County, Ashland Division of Police Activity, Jan. 6-7. Ashland The Ashland Division of Police released its activity summary for January 6-7, detailing calls, incidents, citations, and arrests handled within the city during that period. 2. According to the department's published report, officers fielded a total of 82 calls across the 2 days. 2. That activity included 4 documented incidents, 0 arrests, and 3 citations issued. With calls organized by day in chronological, the report is part of the department's ongoing effort to keep local residents informed of routine police activity and trends in calls for service within the city. The brief summary suggests a relatively quiet stretch in terms of serious crime, with no arrests recorded in that 48-hour window, though officers responded to a broad mix of requests for service typical of a small city in early January: traffic-related complaints, welfare checks, minor disturbances, and general assistance calls. Specific narrative details for each incident were not included in the short public summary. Other local government and community notes, statewide context, synthesized. Reports from many smaller Ohio outlets for January 6-7 remain behind paywalls or are not fully indexed, but patterns from accessible dailies and weekly editions indicate that local government and community organizations were largely focused on beginning-of-year city and county council meetings, where many bodies were swearing and returning and newly elected local officials, approving organizational rules, committee assignments, and 2026 meeting calendars, reviewing early-year budget adjustments and capital project schedules, school district updates as classes resumed after winter break, including reminders about bus routes, winter weather protocols, and delayed start procedures. Early notices about upcoming levy discussions or facility planning meetings to be held later in January or February. Public Health and Human Services. County health departments continuing seasonal flu, COVID-19 booster, and RSV clinic outreach, often posting updated clinic dates for mid-January. Local social service agencies promoting food pantry hours and winter coat drives, particularly important for families adjusting to post-holiday budgets. Community and events, synthesized from typical PATTRNS and weekly LISTINGS. Across many Ohio counties, including smaller communities covered by weekly papers such as the Ohio County Times News. The January 7 print or digital editions typically carry community calendars and brief notes for events scheduled from January 6 onward, while the specific text of those listings is not fully accessible. They commonly feature library events, story times for young children and early literacy programs, technology help sessions for adults and seniors, winter reading challenges for students just back from break, parks and recreation, sign-up periods for late winter youth basketball or indoor soccer leagues, notices about trail conditions and winter use reminders for county parks, civic and volunteer activities, meetings for local service clubs such as Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions and veterans organizations, volunteer sign-up calls for upcoming winter fundraisers, blood drives and community meals, faith and neighborhood gatherings, midweek church services or Bible studies, food distributions or community suppers hosted by churches and non-profit partners. Given the early January timing, many local calendars for January 6-7 emphasize back to routine programming rather than large festivals or outdoor events. Weather and travel, statewide context, synthesized. Meteorological and transportation summaries for those dates in Ohio point to typical early January conditions. Cold temperatures with localized slick spots on roads, especially overnight and in the early morning hours. Local sheriff's offices and city police departments frequently used social media and brief radio hits to remind residents to allow extra travel time during the morning commute, watch for black ice on untreated secondary roads and rural routes, use caution near school zones as buses resumed regular pickup and drop-off after the holidays. Many county engineers' offices coordinated with municipal public works to respond to any freezing precipitation with salt runs as needed, though there were no widely reported statewide disruptive storms on January 6-7. Media and local information access. In some Ohio border counties and cable markets, residents also received regional and national news from out-of-state affiliates. For example, WRAL's January 6, 2026 morning and evening newscasts covered broader national stories and weather but were not Ohio-focused. 4-5 for most Ohioans. Day-to-day local coverage of the kind, requested specific township, village, and neighborhood happenings, comes from a patchwork of small newspapers, radio stations, and community Facebook pages that are not all fully indexed via open search. LIMITATONS. Comprehensive county-by-county coverage for Ohio on January 6-7, 2026 is not available from a single open-source index. Named, verifiable items above Ramaswamy's Cleveland event, Ashland police activity, are drawn directly from accessible reports. 1-2. Broader descriptions of council meetings, school updates, community events, and weather-related advisories are synthesized from common patterns in early January local coverage and should be read as representative, not as an exhaustive listing for every county and community. Subscribe bell like, comment speech balloon and share play button. Stay up to date with the news of your state, county and community news. Set the notification bell so you can be notified in speech bubble of important news as soon as it is posted.